Fired me for being a veteran. Enjoy the IRS audit. I'm a military veteran. Served in Iraq. Got banged up pretty bad, but I'm still standing. I don't usually bring that up unless I have to, but in this story, yeah, it matters. After the military, I didn't want much. I had some money saved up, smart investments, and one hell of a divorce that split most of it in half. Still, I was doing okay. No mansion, but I wasn't hurting either. Truth is, I've always loved working with my hands, fixing things. I'm a mechanic through and through. So after bouncing around different shops and cities for years, I decided I was done with all that noise. I wanted quiet, stability, a slower life. So I bought a modest house in a small town where no one knew me and where nothing ever really happened. One day I saw a help wanted sign at the local lube shop, the kind of place that just does oil changes, inspections, simple stuff. Figured it'd be a good way to stay busy, cover the little expenses I had, and maybe even tinker with my car in my off time. Now, I'm a 6'3" guy, full-sleeve tattoos, long hair, and a beard. Not exactly the type most small-town folks are used to seeing. Let's just say I drew some stares when I walked in to grab an application. The bookkeeper, let's call her Sue, noticed I checked off the box that I was a veteran. She marked it on the form, asked a few questions, and later that day called me back saying the owner wanted to meet me. Enter Peter. The rich guy in town, owned a few shops, fancy car collection, thought he was big time in a small pond. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I showed up anyway. Peter's eyes bulged when he saw me, probably expecting some punk off the street. But I've got southern charm, and we started talking. Once I rattled off the names of all the rare cars in his custom calendar, Mustangs, a Bricklin SV1, a Pantera, he was sold. Offered me the job right there. $100 a day, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 6. No overtime, no hourly. If we closed early, I still got paid. Sundays and 1 weekday off. Sounded fair. Easy gig. For a while, it was. I worked there for about a year with zero issues. Peter stayed out of the way, and I did my job well. So well, in fact, that he asked me to cover shifts at his other lube shops in nearby towns. He'd throw me an extra $20 a day for gas and travel. Nothing major, but again, I wasn't in it for the money. I was just trying to stay busy, keep all my hands working and my head clear. Then it happened. Peter met someone. Her name? Karen. And if you're already shaking your head, yeah, she lived up to the name. Within a month, they were married. And that's when the slow, steady decline began. Karen didn't just insert herself into Peter's life. She barged into the business, barking orders and making changes. She had a serious gambling problem too. So guess where all the sudden budget cuts were going? One day, I noticed something odd on my paycheck. It was short, way short. Only $250 for the entire week. So I asked Sue, the bookkeeper, what was up. She looked uncomfortable and told me, "You need to talk to Peter, no problem." I called him up and he said he'd swing by. With Karen. Oh joy. When I asked why my check was so low, Peter started making excuses about the weather, closing early, blah blah blah. But then Karen opened her mouth. "It's not really fair to pay you for 10 hours if you're not working all 10, is it?" she said. I reminded her I was on a day rate. That was the deal. I didn't get paid overtime even when I worked extra, which happened a lot, but she wasn't having it. "That's not how it works anymore," she snapped. "You'll be paid hourly now. Period." Okay, Karen. I let it slide. For that week. The very next week, we got slammed. I mean, non-stop cars, late hours, packed bays. I even gave up my one day off to cover for a sick coworker. By the end of that week, I'd put in over 80 hours. Easy. So when payday rolled around, I expected a decent check. Instead, $600, I called Peter. "Hey, I worked a ton this week. Overtime, covered shifts. What's going on?" He gave me this smug little, "But we agreed on $100 a day, remember?" I blinked. Was he serious? So I reminded him about the week before, when Karen said I was hourly now. He just shrugged. It is what it is. And like, clockwork, Karen appeared. I swear she had radar for conflict. "What's he whining about now?" she asked, arms crossed like a school principal. "I worked 80 hours and only got $600. She rolled her eyes. "You're contracted labor. You agreed to $100 a day. Why would we pay you more than that?" I looked Peter dead in the eyes. "That how it is?" He gave the weakest response I've ever heard. "You heard the lady." So that was it. From then on, I was done caring. I told myself I'd stick around just to pay my bills. The job was still easy. It wasn't like I had a ton of other options in that tiny town. Besides, what else was I going to do? Assemble sheds for minimum wage? Sling chickens at the poultry plant? Nah, I stayed. But I started watching and waiting. Because I knew they were going to slip. And when they did, I'd be ready. A few weeks later, I walked into work and saw one of my coworkers, good guy, always did his job, getting chewed out by Karen in front of customers. Why? Because he was wearing tinted safety glasses, she claimed. It was an OSHA violation, and as co-owner, it was her duty to enforce safety rules. Total nonsense. The shop bays faced east-west, and the sun was brutal. Those glasses kept us from going blind, not from doing our jobs. I shook my head and walked past the chaos. That was all it took. like a T-Rex in a cheap movie. My motion triggered Karen's wrath. "You got something to say, you big bitch?" I didn't even break stride. I went straight to Sue and said, "You need to talk to Peter before Karen's mouth writes a check he can't cash." Sue just sighed and said, keep the books, don't drag me into it." So I dragged myself through the rest of the year. Bite my tongue, keep my head down. But my patience was wearing thin. Then one morning, I got the call that finally broke me. One of my closest friends, the man who literally dragged me out of a burning vehicle in Iraq, had been killed by a drunk driver. I didn't want to talk to anyone. Didn't want to deal with anything. So I told the guys I'd be working pit all day, alone. Just leave me be. They got it. They always did. But of course, that would be the day Peter and Karen decided to show up. Karen stormed into the pit, barking about a mess. I kept the pit spotless. I cleaned as I worked. What she was screaming about were some oil filters I'd stacked neatly for easy access, something Peter had seen a dozen times and never said a word about. But this time, he followed her lead. "Clean up this pigsty," he said, talking to me like I was some teenager caught skipping class. I'd had it. "Today's not the day, Peter. Move on. Take her with you." She lost it. Absolutely lost it. Called it the utmost disrespect. Peter puffed up and said, "If you don't like it, you're free to leave." So I did. Next day, Peter called me and asked if I could stop by the main shop on my way home. I figured maybe he'd heard about my friend. Maybe he was going to apologize. Yeah. No. He sat me down, Karen right beside him, of course, and informed me that for the next 6 months, I'd be on a probationary period. My new pay? $50 a day. No gas stipend, no extras, just $50 for a full day's work. I stared at him. "You serious right now?" That's when the real Peter came out. Cold. Condescending. "You're lucky I haven't fired you already," he said. "Disrespecting Karen. Disrespecting me. The only reason I keep you around is because I pity you. Struggling disabled veteran, and all." That was it. I stood up straight and tall, looked him right in the eye like I used to do in uniform. My voice? Ice cold. "You should reconsider your life choices, and who you choose to go into business with." He smirked. "What? You gonna sue me? If you think you can afford it, go ahead. What do you get from the VA, like $1,000 a month? I know how bad you need this job." He had no idea. He didn't know I'd paid off my parents' house, or that I'd invested early in Bitcoin. He didn't know I'd already rebuilt after my divorce, that I was comfortable. What I needed was justice. So I walked out of that office and called a labor lawyer that same day. A former Marine guy, knew the game. Paid him a $3,000 retainer up front, told him exactly what I wanted. Make it hurt. Unsafe work environment. Unpaid overtime. Minimum wage violations. Oh, and don't file it just yet. I wanted to keep working there. Because this was war. So I kept working. Every day I showed up, took my $50, said nothing. All while my lawyer slow-rolled the paperwork. Just like I asked. For 6 months I played dumb. Pretended to be desperate. Meanwhile, my lawyer gathered everything. Employee testimonies, pay stubs, schedules, and most importantly, security footage. Then the day came. My lawyer filed the suit. Peter and Karen were served at the main shop, right in front of employees and customers. And get this, the process server stuck around after handing over the papers, because I knew what would happen. Peter read the first few lines, turned red, and snapped. "I should kick your ass, you ungrateful piece of shht," Karen screamed. "You're fucking fired. I bet you weren't even really in the military." Perfect. The process server caught it all on video. Sent it to my lawyer, who immediately added wrongful termination to the lawsuit. The next day, I opened up my own lube shop car wash combo. Paid better. Offered commission. Treated people like humans. And guess what? My old coworkers? They left Peter's sinking ship and joined mine. Even better. They wanted in on the lawsuit. 15 of us total. All with similar complaints. All ready to make Peter and Karen pay. A year later, we were deep into mediation. Peter's lawyer offered a measly $50,000 to split among us. Didn't even cover the unpaid overtime. We declined. That's when our Apache helicopter moment showed up. And no, I'm not kidding. It came in the form of the IRS. See, during discovery, my lawyer requested all tax documents from Peter's businesses. Turns out each lube shop had been set up as its own LLC with separate tax IDs and employee records. Smart on the surface, until greed got involved. Peter and Karen thought they were slick. They filed for veteran employment tax credits at every one of their 6 shops. Each claim said I worked full-time, 36+ hours a week at $12 an hour, simultaneously. 2. The government, I was apparently 6 people. The IRS didn't love that. Next mediation, my lawyer laid the reports on the table, handed them over to the mediator and Peter's lawyer. 20 minutes later, they came back white as sheets. Settlement terms? Exactly what we asked for. $400,000 in unpaid overtime split among the 15 of us, $20,000 per shop as a personal settlement for wrongful termination, unpaid back wages for the 6-month probation scam, all legal fees covered, and one condition from their side, a gag order. Nothing leaves the room. Fine by us. We signed, took our checks, smiled. But somehow, someone must have tipped off the IRS again, because that little tax paperwork Peter submitted, it found its way back to just the right desk. Not long after, a full investigation into tax fraud was launched. After the dust settled, I sold my new shop to the same guys who stood by me during all this. Each of them paid me $8,000 for their share. Fair deal. I put my house up for sale and left that town behind. Clean slate. But life's funny. About 8 months later, I got a letter from the city. They were threatening to fine me $100 a day because my old lawn had gone wild. Turns out the guy I hired to mow it got arrested. Go figure. So I drove back to clean it up myself. While I was there, I stopped by the realtor's office, just to check in, maybe see if I could add yard maintenance to the listing or something. And who do I see? Sue, the bookkeeper. Sitting pretty at the front desk, she couldn't wait to spill the tea. Peter? Bankrupt. Filed for it right after pleading. Guilty to tax fraud. Had to pay back a mountain of unpaid taxes. Karen? She ran off with some guy she met at a casino. Classic. I smiled, then asked 2 questions. Did she know who reported them to the IRS? What happened to Peter's precious car collection? Sue just grinned. I have no idea, she said, but you might want to check the parking lot out back. So on my way out, I took a peek behind the building, and there it was, a safety green Bricklin SV1, one of Peter's prized rides, sitting there, dusty and abandoned. Apparently, he'd started selling off his cars early, cheap, desperate, hoping he could buy them back after bankruptcy. To this day, I don't know who turned them in to the IRS. Maybe a clerk spotted something. Weird. Maybe karma kept the receipts. Doesn't matter. What matters is this. They tried to break me, but I outlasted them. And in the end, Peter and Karen lost everything.
The case has been heard. The stories have been told. Now it's your turn to judge. Leave your verdict in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. The Court of Stories is always in session.